a report of fear instead of a report of faith. And so we're bringing you up on where we are. And because 10 leaders misled 10 tribes of the children of Israel, they wanted to go back to Egypt instead of following God and following God's leadership. And at that same time, they wanted to dismiss Moses from being their leader. And God made Moses the leader. And so exactly what Pastor Rose was just teaching, some of what he was just teaching about people wanting to do things their own way, is what we see in the book of Numbers. People wanting to do their own thing, even to the point of having a vote and outvoting Caleb and Joshua. These 10 leaders wanted to do something different. And Moses prayed on their behalf. He pleaded with them and prayed to God. Say, listen, y'all, you got to do what God say do. You got to follow God. You got to trust God. You got to have faith in God. They did not want to hear Moses. They did not want to hear Aaron. Remember, God directed Moses to appoint Aaron and his sons as the priests. Well, these 10 leaders of the 10 tribes out of the 12 who decided to do what they wanted to do. They wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted to appoint their own leadership. And God had to deal with that. He had to judge them for that. And so the book of Numbers is an interesting story, children, and you can really see how things work. And so let's get to that 16th chapter of Numbers. Those who are with us, those who are following us, let's get to that 16th chapter. Now, Korah is considered a cousin of Moses. Korah is a cousin of Moses, and it's amazing how God utilizes people and plants and placed them to do a particular job. And so when they were at Mount Sinai and God was appointing them, that's in the beginning of Numbers, and God was appointing them, he appointed Moses, he appointed Aaron and his sons, he appointed Korah. Korah was appointed to be Moses' assistant in the tabernacle, the tent tabernacle, the makeshift place of worship that was always erected in the middle of the camp so that they can come in and make sacrifices and worship God, and God would meet them there. Korah had the assignment of setting things up, the furnishings, and making sure that the Ark of the Covenant and other stuff was where it was supposed to be, even though he wasn't to touch it, because Korah was not a priest. He was not a Levite. He was a Levite, but he wasn't a priest. He was not the assigned priest. He was not the leadership priest. He was an assistant priest. He had a very important job, but he was not satisfied with his job. He was not satisfied. Some of the children who may be on right now listening to us, we talked with you Wednesday about how important it is in our lesson we were studying and learning. We were talking about having chores at home, that your parents have given you some responsibilities, because everybody has responsibilities at home. Even as a child, you are taught and then you are given. You're taught how to do something and then you're given that as an assignment. And I asked how many of them had responsibilities, and they shared those with us. And I know that some of them probably didn't like their assignment, because when I was a child, I didn't always like my assignment. But it was the assignment that God that mother had given us, that mother and father had given us. Amen. And so is it with our children. You must learn a responsibility. You must be, and I've shared with them, I think it was last month, I was sharing with you children, that you have to come to church and pay attention to what people are doing. There are things going on. What's going on in worship? What's going on? Who is doing what? Everything is done decently and in order. Some of us come to church earlier on Sundays, and we come through the week. Pastor Rose has us assigned to doing certain things, and by the time we've come through different days through the week, by Sunday morning everything is in place. The choir comes and rehearse on Tuesdays. Pastor Rose teaches. We come to a Bible study on Terrific Tuesday. And then we have a Wonderful Wednesday for our children to have a Bible lesson. And so there are things going on. There are things going on. The church facility is being cleaned on Thursdays and Fridays. Different things is happening around here. Miss Ray Arsenault, Miss Michelle Ray Arsenault, the administrative assistant to our pastor, she's here working on the bulletins and the programs, and there are other people who come by the church, different ministries, leaders come by the church and prep things and prepare things for it to be used and it to be dispersed. Everybody has responsibility. Everybody is willing to work for the common cause to make sure things flow properly. And so I suggested and share with the children through the lessons that we had for them to see the examples in the Bible of how people and persons are assigned responsibilities by who? By God. God give Moses leadership, and then Moses is to give leadership through Joshua. God gave him Joshua as an assistant. God gave him Aaron and Aaron's sons as leaders of the priest out of the tribe of Levi, and all of those priests. And Aaron was over all of them. They weren't to do anything without directives from Aaron. So here in our lesson in this 16th chapter, we're introduced to another personality. Korah is his name. And he had a job. He had a job, and he did not think that his job was important enough. He didn't. God gave him an assignment through Moses, and he didn't think his assignment was important enough because he wanted to be seen. He wanted to be noticed. He wanted to get glory, and all glory belongs to God. Now, the only reason your job seems to be not important is because of the way you think. If you don't think it's important to wash the dishes, imagine if nobody washes dishes and all of the dishes end up dirty. The kitchen is dirty, and then it attracts bugs and things are getting infested. It's very important to wash dishes. It's very important to take out the trash. When you're given the assignment to put the trash out each evening, there's a reason. Mother and father direct you when they say, go put the trash out. They're not talking about when you feel like it. It's a very important assignment because it is connected to other things. It's part of cleaning the kitchen. It's part of cleaning the house. It's part of keeping things sanitized. The trash attracts bugs and whatnot. And so there's a reason for it all. And so you have to believe that it's important. When you're asked to do something by your parents or by your teacher or by your leader at church, by your pastor, by our pastor, You have to feel a sense of that being important. Then you have to feel a sense of being privileged. It is a blessing and a privilege to serve leadership. I was taught that if you don't see the importance of fellowship, you don't know the real importance of leadership. You have to understand, children, I share with you, if you don't get the lessons at home, you're not going to know how to do anything when you leave home. If you don't appreciate the privilege of learning and working together with mother and father and sisters and brothers, you got to work together with your siblings. If you can't work together at home with your siblings, when you get to that age to think that you want a job, you're not going to be able to get along with coworkers. And that's going to be kind of hard. And so when we look at this lesson, Korah challenges God. Korah was not challenging Moses, he was challenging God. Korah did not like it. He came from a good tribe, and what Korah did is Korah wanted to rebel against God, but he knew that rebelling against God, rebelling breeds cooperation from others. When you want to rebel, then you start trying to find other people to think like you and to go along with you. And Korah looked around and found 250 more important leaders throughout the tribe of Israel, and he convinced those 250 leaders of Israel to side with him about Moses, to side with him about how this thing, start talking and saying things that weren't right and weren't true. If you take what Korah is doing, it kind of goes along with what Pastor was just teaching a few moments ago, that there are people in the life of the church that want to still cause insurrection or wants to revolt or rebel against that is right. Even though they heard what Paul was teaching, the argument is that they wanted to be with the Pharisees. And so we see here there's always somebody looking to gang up, to get in a pack, looking for a reason to not want to do what is right, not want to follow leadership. And children, you have to be very, very careful that when you're taught at home the truth, that you stand on the side of truth with your parents, with those who are your leaders. It may not be something you like, but you have to trust truth. You have to trust what is right, and you have to be willing to stand even if you have to stand alone. And Korah, who challenges God, did not want to follow God's way because he had something else in his mind. Matter of fact, there is a scripture that goes along with our lesson this morning out of the book of Jude. It talks about false teachers and false leaders. And this is the kind of spirit that Korah has here in this 16th chapter of Numbers. Korah did not want to follow what God put in place. Now, I want to say this to you, children, because I want you to examine yourself and think about it. If in your little heart and in your little mind, you already got a problem with doing what you're told to do. If something bothers you so much when your mother and father and grandparents or uncles and aunts or any adult leadership that is around you, leading you and directing you, your teachers, your principal, your coaches, your music teacher, any authority that is trying to teach you and lead you and guide you, and you instantly always gets upset and get angry and get mad and you don't want to do it, you need to examine yourself and know that is something going on in your spirit and it's not of God. There is something going on in your mind and it's not good, because you supposed to want to do what is right. It's not yours to examine whether you want to do it or whether you want to listen or whether you want to obey. It is yours to obey. My mother taught us when we were coming up that when I send you to school or I send you to the church or I send you to programs you want to go and play at the gym and be a part of something in the neighborhood, when I send you, I look for responsible adults at those places. And once I know that they're responsible adults, she said, Sammy, Michael, Charles, William, I expect you to follow the adults, follow leadership, be obedient, be kind, be respectful. And my mother and father didn't back down from that. And when we had something to say negative about an adult, my mother, or like the teacher, she said, oh, so you standing up here telling me the teacher is lying, the teacher is not telling the truth, the principal is lying and not telling the truth. So that was double trouble to turn around and try to make an excuse for the reason we wouldn't follow leadership. Korah had no reason to challenge God other than the fact that Korah had jealousy in him. He had jealousy, so he sought and seeked out those in the camp of Israel who also had jealousy in them and envy in them. See that kind of spirit and that kind of behavior always try to look for other people who think like them. That's why we got these gang problems in America. We got these gang problems in school. We got these gang problems in Houston. That's why we got the bullying problem. There are children who are like-minded, and bullies hang out together. Bullies find each other who else is bullies, and that's who they hang out with. And then they be like, let's go pick on this person, let's go pick on this person, let's go pick on that person. But listen, being a bully is not good. No, Korah wanted to bully on Moses. He literally rose up and said he was going to take him a position. He picked on Moses, he picked on Aaron, he picked on Aaron's sons, and he found him some people who wanted to side with him. It's right here in the 16th chapter of Numbers. He found some people who wanted to side with him, and he started a problem because of how he felt. Korah found these 250 people and talked to them and decided to rise up and say, we don't want Moses and Aaron and his sons as our leaders and our priests anymore. Well, that was a challenge against God, because God was the one who assigned Moses. If you got a problem with your mother and father, and God gave you your mother and father, there is nobody else on planet Earth that God has ordained to be your blessing. That's why the scripture teaches us that children be obedient to your parents so that your life can be long on earth. It has something to do with your longevity. It has something to do with your obedience to God, is your obedience to your parents. Your obedience to your parents is your example of obedience to God. if you decide you don't want to be obedient to your parents, you're also sinning against God, because God put this together. I want you to think about that. You're to love your parents. You're to respect your parents. It's not about understanding them. You will grow to learn that their behavior and their living is what you will be learning. You will learn from them. And so Korah had this jealous, envious spirit in him, and he did not want Moses. And so how long had that been going on possibly? Remember, they were cousins. And so even from the time that Moses was raised by Pharaoh, and he found out the truth of his life, and he tried to make the best of it, and once he learned the plan of God for his life, and he tried to live accordingly. Maybe Korah's had this jealousy in him all the time. I don't know. Where does jealousy come from? It comes from the way you think. When you let the devil plant the wrong seed in your mind, you begin to think wrong. The Bible says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. So our minds have to be in line with the will of God, children. Your mind has to be in line with the directions of your parents. Mom and daddy say, we're going to do this. That's what we're going to do. Like, you all are so privileged, just like Korah was. Korah was privileged, and it got the best of him. Listen, we were never asked, what is it that we want to eat? We were never asked that when we were children. We were told we were going to have something to eat, but we didn't know what we were going to eat all the time. And we were like, Mama, what are we going to eat today? She said, the Lord will make a way. All of that McDonald's and go and get hamburgers and chicken nuggets and French fries and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have that privilege because we didn't have much. My mother worked hard. My father worked hard, but that was to take care of us at home. We had groceries at home, and my mother would say, just wait until we get home so we can get something to eat. We're not stopping nowhere to buy some food just because you think you want to stop to get some food. You children are privileged, and you ought to be thankful. You ought to be thankful that you have parents that love you so and want to do for you as they're doing, and they're trying to do their best. And what you think they have to do, they don't have to do. Korah missed that. He missed the privilege of working in the tent tabernacle, helping things be coordinated and put in place right for them to come and make sacrifices and offerings and worship God. He had an important responsibility. You may not know this, children. I assist over here with cleaning up the church. I have a janitorial service, and Pastor Rose has given me the privilege with my business to be the janitorial service for the church. I take pride in it. I want to see the church look like I would want it to look. I'd make sure it's clean, it smells good. I don't have any problem. And anything that needs to be pointed out to me, and Pastor Rose needs to point it out to me, or Miss Arsenault helps me to see some things, because it's easy to miss something, to overlook something. It's easy. You can have the best intentions to do things right and do it as good as you can, but it's easy to overlook something. And you should be open-minded to someone trying to help you and correct you and teach you the right way to do something. And so Korah missed that. And so he got this big group reared up against Moses and and went to Moses and said, we're not following you anymore, and we're going to take over. Now, this is why they're wandering around in the wilderness already under judgment, because of their disobedience, because of the 10 leaders that went and spied out the promised land of Canaan. They haven't yet even made it to the promised land because they've been judged by God for being disobedient. And they're wandering around in a circle while God is chastising them already for doing something wrong. Let me suggest to you, children, let me suggest to you, if you've already made a mistake, if you've already done something wrong, if you've already been disobedient to your parent, don't continue to be disobedient. Be remorseful. What's that word? Feel bad about what you've done. Try to think of a way to make it right with your parents, to make it right with the school, to make it right with your teacher in your classroom, to make it right with your brother or your sister. Don't stay mad and continue to do the wrong thing or do more wrong things and be angry. Do you know that's part of what happened with the story in Genesis with Cain and Abel? Cain and Abel had become of age, and they were supposed to present themselves for God in worship and church and give the proper offering. And Cain decided he was just going to do what he wanted to do. He didn't care about what he was taught. This is an example. This is in Genesis. He didn't care about what his father taught him. He didn't care about what God required of them. He decided he wanted to bring what he wanted to bring, and God told them what type of offerings to always bring and present to him. And Cain did what he wanted to do, but Abel, his little brother, who was taught the same way he was, came in and worshiped God right, brought the right offering in, and God accepted Abel's offering. And Cain got mad at his brother because he was mad at God. He was angry with God. And he got mad with his little brother because God accepted what Abel offered in his offering. And guess what Cain did, children? He killed his brother. He plotted to kill him. He lured him away to kill him. And he killed him. That's what jealousy and envy can cause to happen. You don't want to have that kind of spirit. You don't want to have Korah's kind of mindset. You don't want to challenge God. You don't want to challenge your parents. If you challenge your parents, you'll challenge the law. You'll challenge policemen with a badge and a gun. If you challenge your parents, challenge your principal, challenge your teachers at school, you'll challenge a gang member. You'll challenge a person with a knife or a gun and you don't have one. It gets worse. It gets worse. All of this stuff we're hearing about, this road rage and these people running around with guns and shooting people and all these kinds of things are happening, all as a result of sin, all as a result of envy and jealousy and hate. It's uncalled for, and it's so important. And so our lesson continues to tell us that God had to handle that. And so Moses went to God, and Moses said, now, if you want to do this, Moses tried to talk them out of doing it. They didn't want to hear it. So Moses said, okay, if you want to challenge me, you're challenging God. So you meet me in a certain place, and you come in with your lanterns, and you come in with your stuff as though you have a right to come in and do things that you're not supposed to do, and light candles and light the things that the priests do, and come in with the stuff that the priests are supposed to come in with and you're not supposed to come in with. You come in here like you got a right and stand before me, and we're going to see who God will favor, who God will side with. when God's presence and glory comes upon us. And they met, and when they met, God sided with Moses and set them on fire. Burned Korah and all of those leaders that were with him and those people that were on his side, set them on fire and burned them up so that others can see it. Others in the tribe of Israel can see that and know that God does not play when it comes to following his orders. God does not play when it comes to following the leadership that he puts in place. God does not play. You can't play with your parents. You can't play with leadership. You can't play with being obedient. You have to be obedient. Your parents are not children for you to play with them. They're your parents. You can have fun with them and they can love on you and have a good time, but never get it twisted, children. Never think that you know more than your parents. Never get in your head that you're better than your parents and you should be able to talk back and sass your parents and all of that. Don't get it twisted. Don't pick up this stuff off of these TV shows and these cartoons and the stuff you hear in this music and all of this stuff that is being said and being talked about. And I'm going to tell you, all cartoons are not good cartoons. All of this stuff y'all are permitted to watch on television and permitted to watch on your iPad and your tablets and all these new types of cartoons, all of them are not good. Some of them are designed by the devil, and they're teaching you thoughts and teaching you words and teaching you things to say, and you better be careful how you say what you say. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example, children, of some things. Some of you children think it's all right to use the word dang. Dang. You know what that word is close to? You better be careful saying words like that you hear, because it was put in place of another word that grown people use. And you can easily be misheard. Somebody can mishear you using the word dang. That word is close to using another word that we consider a curse word. So you got to be careful, children. You can't pick up all of these little things that you hear other children saying and other children, how they talk to their parents. Don't you come home trying to talk to your parents like other children talk to their parents. Be careful. Korah did not realize, or he didn't care, that he was challenging God. Not only did Korah die, but all of those who Korah misled. Remember I told you, when you want to go the wrong way, then you want to try to find people to follow you. So Korah became a false teacher and a false leader. That's what he was doing. He was misleading people, and he had to pay for it, and they had to pay for it. They tried to blame Moses for having them in the wilderness, wandering around, and yet not being able to get back to Egypt. It didn't have nothing to do with Moses. They disobeyed God. They decided that they didn't want to go and fight against the Canaanites and the people who were in the promised land. They missed the point that God was leading them. They were not leading God. God was leading them through Moses. And it was important that they would follow the leadership and trust God and trust the leader and believe if God brought them this far, he can bring them all the way. They wanted to go back to Egypt, so God was letting some die in the desert. So now they want to start blaming Moses for them being wandering around in the desert like they were lost. That was a result of disobedience. And when you choose to disobey your parents, you are already starting to be on the road of a desert. You're already headed in the wrong direction to not follow the leadership that God has given you through pastors, through preachers, through parents, through grandparents, through adults who are trying to do the best thing for you and make the right decisions for you so that you can be a child that succeed and not a child that fail as a result of allowing your own thinking to lead you astray. You have to remember the teachings that you're getting and welcome the teachings that you're receiving of those who God has planted and placed in your life to lead you. I hope I've said something to help you this morning. I pray that you will get the lesson. It's important to be careful not to get on the sides and be with people, children who don't want to follow adults and don't want to follow leadership. Be careful who you make friends with at school. Be careful who you side with in the neighborhood and at church, who even around the church may not be doing the right thing. You know what is right. Stay on the side of right and righteous, and God will bless you for it. God bless you. May God keep you is our prayer.